Hello. Good morning. I am not.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Please start. Good morning. Good morning. Please start.
Hello. Good morning to all of you. I, Miss Anita Pradhan, lecturer in Civil Engineering Department, Government Polytechnic Kendrapara, and assistant coordinator of this program, now wholehearted welcome to all the learned participants and distinguished guests to this 6 days faculty development program on disaster vulnerability atlas of India and preventive measures from 21st February to 26th February. I would like to inaugurate the function by presenting you Saraswati Vandana. To welcome is to do honor, and to welcome is to establish integrity. So I request our coordinator, Dr. Manoranjan Samal sir, to give us insight about our guest. Please proceed, and over to you, sir.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Anita Madam, for your presentation. Respected chief guest of this inaugural function, Sri Raghuji IS, Director of Technical Education and Training, Odisha, the guest of honor, Dr. B.D. Vaidya, Executive Secretary, IST, New Delhi, and Colonel B. Venkot, Director, FDC, AICTE, New Delhi, and Chief Speaker, Engineer Amir Ali Mir, Director Disaster Management of the State of Jammu and Kashmir, Chairman of the Organizing Committee and the Principal, Government Polytechnic Kendrapara, Dr. G.N. Pradhan, and other dignitaries present on this platform. At the outset, I would like to extend my hearty welcome to the distinguished guests and the learned participants of this AICTE-ISTE sponsored refresher program on disaster vulnerability atlas of India and preventive measures being organized by the Government Polytechnic Kendrapara. I am very happy to inform you that for this particular program, we have got overwhelming response across the country, and participants of 15 different states and union territories besides Odisha, namely Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, J&K, Assam, Meghalaya, Sikkim, and Mizoram have joined the program, which includes both junior and senior faculty members from NITs, universities, government and private institutions, both degree and diploma, and professionals from reputed organizations. What perhaps needs a special mention is that some senior professors of 60 plus age range have also shown their interest in the program as participants. In addition to this, we have been fortunate to get the services of some extremely well-experienced research persons from institutions of national eminence and organizations of established repute who will deliver the technical sessions during coming 6 days of this faculty development program. We are again very glad to convey the fact that the number of participants exceeded the maximum limit of 100 within the first 3 days from the start of the registration process, for which we had to close the registration site well ahead of the last date, and hence regret for not being able to accommodate all interested candidates. However, arrangements have been made for live YouTube streaming of the sessions. The timing of the sessions have been selected outside the normal office hours so that both participants and the speakers can effectively devote their time without hampering their normal duties. Regarding the topic of this refresher program, I would like to have a brief account of vulnerability atlas of India published by BMTPC, Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council of Government of India. So, the Vulnerability Atlas of India, the third edition of which was published in the year 2019, covering earthquakes, wind, flood, landslide, thunderstorm maps, and damage risk in housing, is an indispensable tool to natural disaster prevention, preparedness, and mitigation of housing and related infrastructure. It is a fact that higher losses of life and property on account of natural hazards in the urban areas are due to increasing urbanization, expansion of habitat into unsuitable vulnerable areas, vulnerable construction, loss of traditional building skills, ignorance, apathy, and complacency, non-engineered unsafe construction, structurally unsound and unauthorized vertical extensions and additions to houses. However, due to introduction of Disaster Management Act or policies and proactive measures by the government, the losses are on the decline, but the aim should be to achieve zero tolerance to avoid loss of lives. Of course, the people by and large are not adequately aware of this risk their shelters are actually exposed to. The poor ability of knowledge and know-how at the individual level is to certain extent responsible for the scenario. There is blatant violation and non-adherence of existing laws for settlement planning, zoning, land use, and building construction codes regulations. Also, there is rampant lack of adequate mechanisms and institutions for the dissemination and delivery of knowledge and other aspects of disaster mitigation activities. Risk is a culmination of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure taken together, whereas the hazard constitutes the occurrence of any one or more of the earthquakes, tsunami, floods, cyclone, wildfires, landslides, and volcanoes, etc., natural or man-made disasters. The vulnerability can be of engineering, economic, or social types, which may lead to exposure of people, buildings, business, or infrastructure facilities. This can take place is directly proportional to each of three of factors. For example, hazard, vulnerability, and exposure, but inversely proportional to capacity to cope with such situations or phenomena. Thus, vulnerability can be defined as the degree of loss to a given element at risk or set of such elements resulting from the occurrence of a natural phenomena or of a given magnitude and intensity. The development of Vulnerability Atlas of India can be traced back to the year 1990 when the Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council of India came into existence and subsequently the housing risk tables enumerating the levels of damage risks up to district level with reference to natural hazards like earthquakes, cyclones and floods were prepared with the help of state and union territory-wise hazard maps in the year 1997. Again, based on the census data of the year 2001 and using GIS tools as well as digital maps, the housing risk tables were published based on the distribution of houses by the predominant materials of roofs and walls. However, in the year 2019, new data sets with respect to occurrence of earthquakes, cyclones, windstorms, landslides, floods, thunderstorms, etc. were brought with the addition of demographic changes based on 2011 census data. Thus, Vulnerability Atlas of India is an important tool for the identification of vulnerable areas through digitized hazard zoning maps of earthquakes, wind, cyclone, floods, digitized incidence maps of landslides and thunderstorms, district-wise tables of varying house, Nadu, Tripura, West Bengal, Goa, north-eastern state of India, including Sikkim. Cyclone occurrence maps of coastal India based on the maximum estimated 3-minute average maximum sustained wind speed. Thunderstorm incidence map of India showing frequency of thunderstorms at different sections of the country. The housing stocks vulnerability tables for each state and district indicating each house by wall and roof type, the level of damage risk with regard to earthquake, wind, and floods. This course assumes importance because the topic on vulnerability across India is going to be part of the interdisciplinary syllabus of both degree and diploma level courses, and familiarity with vulnerability across India has been made mandatory for all tender documents under the Government of India. So I am sure the coming week will turn out to be very interactive one for the participants, and they will be immensely benefited from the program. Again, I would hopefully expect all cooperation and constructive suggestions from the participants for qualitative improvement in the delivery of program in order to make it more effective and fruitful. So, before concluding my address, I would like to introduce our distinguished guests to the August audience. So, we have other guest of honor, Colonel B. Venkat, who is a serving army officer from the technical branch, Crops of Electronic and Mechanical Engineering, having done his mechanical engineering from Army Institutes, having more than 30 years of service experience and served in all possible appointments of command, staff, and instructional, and handles faculty development related issues and release of grants. Colonel Venkat has a unique distinction of representing India as its technical military attaché to Russia. The officer also has expertise in AICTE quality initiatives like NITT, National Institute for Technical Teachers Training, implementation of exams reforms, AICTE students learning assessment, and process of implementation of National Education Policy 2020. So now he is acting as Director of Faculty Development Cell at AICTE headquarters, New Delhi. So our another guest of honor is Professor B.D. Vaidya, who graduated from Karnataka Regional Engineering College, Suratkar, with BTech in Civil Engineering in 1981. During his field of, he has designed different structures like industrial, commercial, etc. He has many years of experience as teacher in various capacities, lecturer, head of the department, training placement officer, vice principal, and principal. He has administrative experience as a deputy director of Maharashtra State Board of Technical Education, and he is instrumental in activating various programs and activities of IST, and he is serving as the Executive Secretary of IST New Delhi at present. Next is our chief speaker of this session, Engineer Amir Alimir, who is a graduate in Civil Engineering from Regional Engineering College and now National Institute of Technology, Srinagar, and he had his Masters in Environmental Science from ISSR, Vellore. He has a vast experience of more than 30 years, spanning technical, administrative, and international projects. He has extensively worked at the ground level on many issues and is an able and versatile officer. He was the chairman of J&K State Center of Institution of Engineers, India, for over 3 years. He is posted in the government of Jammu and Kashmir as Director of Disaster Management and Nodal Officer, J&K State Emergency Operations Center. He was instrumental in preparing the state disaster management policy and disaster management plans for all districts. He is the recipient of a Director General Civil Defense Medal for meritorious voluntary service. And now our chief guest of today's function, Sri Raghuji sir, who joined Indian Administrative Service in the year 2011 with mechanical engineering background and has previously served as the collector of the Kendrapara district, which is the home district of this institution. At present, he is the Director of Technical Education and Training, Odisha, and in charge of Vice Chairman, State Council of Technical Education and Vocational Training, Odisha. Also, he is handling additional charges of some sister organizations pertaining to skill and employment under the government of Odisha. Skill development and technical education in the state is prospering under his able guidance and spirit and motivation. He is he is at present Director of Technical Education and Training. So, with this introduction, I would like to conclude my speech. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Gunanidhi Pradhan, Chairman of this program and also Principal of Government Polytechnic Kendrapara, to address keynote. Please proceed, and over to you, sir. Over to you, Gunanidhi sir.
Pradhan sir, you are muted, please.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Government Polytechnic Kendrapara, I extend a hearty welcome to all the participants, distinguished speakers, and dignitaries of this inaugural session. First and foremost, I would like to thank both AICTE and ISTE for giving us the opportunity to organize this refresher program on the topic Disaster Vulnerability Atlas of India and Preventive Measures. As you are all aware that the Indian subcontinent is vulnerable to a number of natural hazards like earthquakes, windstorms, cyclones, landslides, floods, and thunderstorms. Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council under the Department of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, since its inception in 1990, was committed towards promotion of disaster mitigation measures through preparedness and brought out the first Vulnerability Atlas of India in 1997. The second edition was brought out in 2006, based on 2001 census data using GIS tools and GSTAT maps were developed for the first time, providing hazard and seismic tectonic information up to district level. Recognize the vulnerability of the Indian subcontinent, the Disaster Management Act was enacted in 2005, followed up by the National Policy of Disaster Management in 2009 and National Disaster Management Plan 2016. The third edition of the Vulnerability Atlas of India was brought out in 2019. The UN General Assembly has declared 1990-2000 as the International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction. All these policy frameworks brought a paradigm shift in disaster risk management from post-disaster relief-centric measures to proactive pro-disaster preventive measures. Coming back to Kendrapara, the district of Odisha where we are currently located, I would like to inform you that Kendrapara, being a coastal district of Odisha, is a bright example of the disaster vulnerability atlas of India. 87% of the district area lies in the seismic intensity MSK 7 zone, that is seismic zone 3. 100% area of this district is in 50 to 55 miles per second wind velocity zone. 48.4% area of the district is flood prone. The probable maximum precipitation is 716 mm, which comparatively is a high figure. The district lies in the cyclone prone area of Odisha coast and possesses a very high risk of around 62.9% of total housing units. Thus, the life and property of the population living in this district is at a great cyclonic risk. The 1999 super cyclone of Odisha is still fresh in our minds. To make this program more interesting and beneficial, we have a blend of highly experienced resource persons, both from different state disaster management authorities as well as from the academia. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the dignitaries of this inaugural session, the distinguished speakers of this program, and in particular the participants for their overwhelming response for this program. I'm sure that this refresher program will be very much beneficial to the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request our guest of honor, Dr. V.D. Vaidya, Executive Secretary, ISTE, New Delhi, to address the audience. Sir, we welcome you on this platform. Thank you. We are honored to have you here, sir. Please proceed.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you for this inaugural program of this topic, Disaster Vulnerability Atlas of India and Preventive Measures, organized by Government Polytechnic Kendrapara. Respectable Raghuji, Director of Technical Education and Training, Odisha. Colonel B. Venkat, a dynamic leader, enthusiastic personality, the Director of Faculty Development Sales from AICTE. Dr. G. N. Pradhan, Principal of this institute. Dr. Amir Ali, Dr. M.R. Samal, Coordinator of this program, and Ms. Anita Pradhan, and members of the organizing committee. First of all, I would like to congratulate Manoranjan Samal sir for organizing such a nice program, because just already he has mentioned that within first 3 days the registration was closed and they are having more than 100 number of participants registered for this program. And I want to mention here is that last time also he conducted same type of program under AICTE-ISTE related with the earthquake and seismic analysis, and that was also a very received a good response. And another thing is that even I was also involved, I was in contact with him, and the efforts and the way in which he is organizing and conducting the program is really appreciable. Even today, if you are considered the way in which he has elaborated the topic and the consideration he has given for this program, that is really appreciable. And I really congratulate particularly Pradhan sir, GM Pradhan sir, principal of this institute, for organizing such a nice program, particularly in a polytechnic. Because really the programs which are being organized and under this scheme, even though are in polytechnic, they are arranged in a best possible manner, not in a best possible manner, you can say that it is in an excellent manner. So congratulations to Manoranjan sir and Pradhan sir and his team for this program. Now this is the AICTE-ISTE program, and the basic objective of this program is to give information about the emerging areas or the new technologies or the new developments in the area to our teachers. Because unless and until teachers are not trained in a proper direction, they are not in position to deliver the things to their students. And now, see, the topics which you have covered or the title which you have covered, I think everybody knows something about it, but not in detail or not much. And I feel that it is the duty of every teacher that they should be aware about the disaster, various types of disasters and their impacts and the measures to reduce them. Particularly now, the technology has developed in such a manner that with the help of technology, it is very easy or it is possible to predict different things in a proper time, and proper precautionary measures can be taken. Particularly if you say about the cyclone or if you talk about the tsunami and all, it's very easy or in well in advance we get the information, and with that information we can save the lives. And that many lot more examples are there. And particularly I feel you are the right organization or your right institute to organize this program, because you are staying in such a vulnerable area where in which you have all types of you are facing all types of disasters at various times. So really it's a good initiative for this from this institute, and I appreciate all the participants who have joined for this program, that with the intention to learn new things. Now, if you consider the present scenario, the industry is changing at a rapid rate. Everything is changing, and it is very difficult to what is going to happen tomorrow. And for that, now the time has come that every faculty should be aware that he or she has to have a knowledge of emerging areas, new trends in their areas, and that is why I feel that these types of programs are quite useful. Now there will be a session on national education policy, and you will find that in national education policy also it is clearly emphasis is given to the training of faculties in emerging areas. And that is why you will find that in due course, lot more agencies, that is AICTE, even Government of India and different state directorates and IST and also on will be coming out with various initiatives for the faculty training. And I feel it's your duty as a faculty member to take maximum advantage of this and to keep your knowledge updated. Now, one thing you have to bear in mind that the things are changing at such a rapid rate, and it is highly essential that you have to move with the time. And if you just don't move with the time, one fine day, one fine morning, you will realize that you are outdated or you are obsolete as far as technology is concerned. And just imagine what will be your value in your institute and your value in the society. So I feel that the time has come that every faculty should ensure that they are moving with the technology, they are moving with the trends. Particularly, I would like to appreciate the participants who are above 60 and had joined this program. I really appreciate their zeal for knowing the thing, and I appeal to those participants that, sir, you are having wide experience in your area. You may be from academia or you may be from other areas also, but you please ensure that whatever you have learned, try to disseminate with uh, at a different platform for the betterment of our society, and that will be a real good service from you. We are expecting. And now, when you consider all these things, there are two things you have to bear in mind: that faculty should ensure that their knowledge is at par with the latest trends and technologies, and for that, lot more things are going on as I already mentioned. And I feel it is my duty to mention the name of Colonel Venkat, Director of Faculty Development Cell from AICT, who is taking lot more initiatives for the betterment of faculty. He is a person having high regards for the teaching community, and with that zeal, he is working for the betterment of teaching faculty. So, really a good, nice personality. And at the same time, when you talk of all these things, the question will arise, sir, everything is okay, but how to train the students, or how where is the opportunity for the students? I feel that IST student chapter is the best opportunity to develop your students, because under that student chapter you can organize various activities for the betterment of students. And the important feature of that activity is that every program is to be organized under every program under the banner of IST studentship is to be organized by the students, and only staff advisor will guide them. So the role of advisor is to guide them, whereas the students will conduct the program in all respect. And you'll find that whenever we give such a freedom to the students, they have the hidden potential and they do the program in such an excellent way that we never imagined, and that gives them the confidence about the capacities they are having, and that definitely helps them in their future life. So I feel that you can think of this and organize various activities with the help of student chapter. Particularly now, as I mentioned, that things are changing at a very rapid rate, and we have to move with the technology. And that is why, for it is essential that we all should move together. That is Directorate of Technical Education, institutes, AICTE, and IST. And for that, I appeal all the participants that if you have any suggestion, you can contact us, you can write to us, or you can even contact me also, because we are having very good interaction with AICTE, NBA, Department of Education, state directorates, and industries. So together, once we decide, we can do a lot better for the development of technician education in our country. And only remember that we have to think about the economic growth of our country, and to that we can contribute with the help of technology. And we have to think various ways of helping the nation to develop in different areas. And for that, I feel that nowadays it is the era of innovativeness, or the scope is there for innovativeness. And even in national education policy, it talks about the research aspect. So I request you that innovative characters in the student should be encouraged, and entrepreneur, they try to see that many of them will become entrepreneur, and when they become entrepreneur, that definitely will help for the economic growth of our country. So with this, I'm very much thankful for this institute for organizing such a nice program, and I request participants that they have considered everything that is your convenience, because you are busy with your regular day-to-day activities in the college. So with that, they have considered this. So I feel that they have taken best effort to organize this program, and now it is your duty to give proper justice to them for this program. So with this, I am very much thankful to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to interact with you, and I wish all the best for this program, and I am sure that this program will be of grand success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request our guest of honor, Colonel B. Venkat, Director FDC AICTE New Delhi, to address our audience. Once again, welcome, sir. Please proceed.
Anita ma'am, thanks a lot. It's absolutely great pleasure and honor to be coming on your virtual platform. And let me first introduce by commenting my talk by saying that thank you to your complete faculty members, your coordinators, co-coordinators, management staff for taking on a wonderful topic. And yes, I also join alongside Professor Vaidya sir in remembering that a talk of this nature had taken place at the same very institute around few months back. Government Polytechnic Kendrapara, you are very much, let us say that you are in the center or the focal of the seismologic situation and conditions of the country, where in this particular aspect is been felt maximum by you people. So what better could have been that you have selected a topic which is so very relevant and connected with each and every one. This is exactly what is called as learning by experience. This is called as experiential learning, wherein your topic has an immediate connect and an immediate relevance with the surrounding areas. So number one, what a wonderfully selected topic that to start with. Number two, I need to be thanking Anita ma'am for actually speaking, giving each one of us very sequentially the opportunity to be speaking. And quite obviously, Dr. Samal sir, you have been always brilliant. Your mannerisms of conduct, your method of conduct, you're always the way in which you bring about and highlight the topic, wherein in this specific instant, also you mentioned that you had a very heavy registration from across 15 states and the UTs across the country. That speaks about the volumes of the topic you select, that speaks about your capacity as far as your reach to people across the country is concerned. And most importantly, it speaks about the repute of the organization and the institute. So that's well done. It's a wonderful done activity which is going on as of now. It's commencing today. It's going to be there for next 1 week. And during 1 week, we expect the number of participants got connected for the singular purpose, and the purpose happens to be learning new nuances and techniques on the subject which is so specific as far as your specific region, area, and the points are concerned, which is always, if you keep asking yourself, what more can I be doing to bring about a change, or what more should I be doing to contribute to my institute, to my students, or even if I have to connect it to the students. So once you have a topic of disaster vulnerability, Atlas of India, and preventive measures, you not only get to understand what is the various activities which are related to the disaster management, and but at the same time you also understand how what is mitigation measures related to these particular activities. So that is what exactly we wish to compliment you and your complete team for an activity which has been done so beautifully. I need to also go across and be thanking Vaidya sir, Vijay Vaidya sir himself, one of the most humble persons, one of the persons with massive academic acumen, knowledge, administrative capability, and each one of them combined together results in a leadership quality which Sir displays and shows, wherein continuously back to back we get connected to multiple more initiatives and activities of the state and of the country. And each activity results in a forum, something like this, which we are connected today, wherein we get connected with multiple more faculty members and research scholars across the country for their own benefit and knowledge. Dr. J.N. Pradhan sir, being principal of the institute, thank you for your vision leadership. Thank you for your kind of an availability on the platform always, for shaping the faculty members, for shaping the future of teachers, and then in turn, quite obviously, of the students. So that is what we expect out of a leadership, and you are displaying it absolutely in such a broad manner which can be copied. And this is where we always keep saying an online training program, in addition to being a subject specific, wherein the subject specific knowledge is given, also has multiple more benefits which people do observe and notice. This is a forum wherein your exposure does not get limited to your own regional area. This is a forum wherein your exposure cuts across the country, and your institute and each and every person who would be coming and speaking would be viewed by many. So this is where you also learn what is called as stage management, stage presence, the way of an art of speaking. That is also so very important, which overall we people call it as pedagogical aspects of teaching and learning. So wonderful to you people to having done this. The honorable chief guest of today morning, Raghu sir, the director of technical education and training in Orissa. We would love to hear him. We would love to implore upon him to make many more institutes in Orissa come forward, come along, join hands with AICTE and ISTE. Move forward as far as your quality is concerned, and you will find us always there. Best wishes to each one of you. Looking forward to many more collaborations. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request our chief guest, Sri Rekhuji, IAS, Director of Technical Education and Training, to address our audience. Sir, we welcome you on this platform. Thank you. We are honored to have you here, sir. Please proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Pradhan. Vaidya, Executive Secretary of that is for the education. About you again, and I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this event for calling me today to address this event. As you all know, Odisha is one of the front runners in disaster management in the entire country. After the super cyclone event of 1999, which happened which had disastrous consequences for the state. The entire capacity of the state for dealing with disasters has been revamped. The state is today a role for many states in the field of disaster management, with regards to and flood management. Kendrapara, as the principal Mr. Pradhan mentioned, is sitting in a very vulnerable spot. Kendrapara is being host to one of the earliest climate refugees in the country. The Satara village in is perhaps the one first in the country to be relocated because of sea erosion, ravages caused by sea erosion, and the entire village has been relocated to another place by Odisha Disaster Management Authority. So Kendrapara is dealing with the ravages of climate change and vulnerabilities caused by various disasters. So I think this is a perfect setting for conducting vulnerability atlas and can be implemented in various construction management techniques. Also, the recent direction issued by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, they have also instructed all the agencies to include disaster resilience in the tender documents itself, so that right from the beginning, the required precautions are taken while calling for the tender for construction of buildings. I think in this context, it is very important that all our faculties also update their knowledge and are up to date with the request of dealing with such vulnerabilities caused by these disasters. It's in the right apt moment, and maybe that's also why we have seen such huge demand from various faculties, to the extent that it has been oversubscribed, if I could use that word. Again, I would like to put in my gratitude to Dr. Vaidya for helping us with all these efforts. Also, to Colonel Venkat has been helping us in development initiatives organized by AICTE. He has always been there with us in our initiatives. I'd also like to congratulate Dr. Samal and Mr. Pradhan for the interest that they have taken in organizing this event. And I also express my gratitude to Dr. Amir, the JNK Development Authority, Disaster Development Authority, for being the chief speaker. Again, my gratitude to all the participants who have joined from all over the country. I wish you all the best, and I hope the next 6 days of learning will provide a great learning environment to all of you. And I hope also to see that all these changes that are being proposed by various state authorities are being implemented, and that finally what is taken is that our students who are learning various engineering colleges or polytechnics or other technical institutions all across the country are made aware of all these changes, and that when they finally go out of the college as practitioners, they incorporate all these changes in their work on the ground. So once again, thank you to all of you, and I wish this session the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable words. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the distinguished guests and all the participants for sparing their valuable time for the inauguration of the function. Now I request Engineer Amir Ali, Chief Speaker, to start his presentation of the technical session on disaster preparedness measure in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Anita ji. Please give me the right to share my screen. Hello?
Yes, sir.
I need the rights to share my screen. Please let me know when it is visible.
Yes, visible, sir.
Okay, is the presentation visible?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Samal, for inviting me to participate in this wonderful program. Why are we participating from Jammu and Kashmir? Because you see, the chief guest also said that, the entire country is vulnerable to disasters. And if we start from the north, the Jammu and Kashmir is vulnerable to majority of the disasters. If we talk about India, as I said, is vulnerable to majority of the disasters. Around almost 60% of the country is prone to earthquakes. Around 12%, that is more than 40 million hectares, is prone to floods. The area where this Orissa is, around almost 6,000 kilometers out of the around 7,500 kilometers coastline, is prone to cyclones and tsunamis. And Odisha has already had its share of the super cyclone in 1999. And majority of the country, or almost 68 to 70%, is vulnerable to droughts. Where I come from, in the hilly areas, we are vulnerable to landslides, avalanches, of course, also earthquakes also. And then there is a possibility that, we can always be affected by the CBRN, that is the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear disaster. And of course, the human-induced disasters. Unfortunately, the vulnerabilities increase due to the socio-economic conditions and the unplanned urbanization. The construction, one of the speakers already mentioned earlier also, the constructions in the high-risk zones and the environmental degradation that we do, the climate change, geological hazards, epidemics, pandemics like COVID, and the disaster threats are posing as a risk to our sustainable development. If we talk of Jammu and Kashmir has unfortunately had a very long history of natural disasters. We believe that the disasters cannot be prevented, but definitely measures can be taken to minimize damages due to the disasters. And that is why we are having this program today. We believe, in fact, this is the motto that we have from the State Disaster Management Authority, that a prepared community can deal with the situation in a better manner if they are well aware of the risks. So therefore, we believe in the slogan that help people to help themselves. I'm not really sure how many of you are aware about the scenario in Jammu and Kashmir. I'll not go into too much details because I'll just give you a macro level bird's eye view of it. But majority of the districts in Jammu and Kashmir lie in seismic zone 4 and 5. Orissa lying in seismic zone 3, as was mentioned earlier by the principal. And till 2014, we were actually not aware that majority of the areas which are in the Kashmir Valley, now we have 2 regions. Earlier we had 3 regions, Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. Now the Kashmir Valley or the Kashmir region, there were very few areas that were actually vulnerable to floods. But in 2014, we had massive floods and we realized that, almost the entire Kashmir Valley is prone to floods. And then we have some areas which are majority of the rest of the areas are prone to flash floods. We live in an area which is where snowfall takes place. I think that I was just checking in the morning, the temperature in Orissa is around 12 degrees currently. And whereas in Srinagar, you can see I'm wearing a jacket, it is minus 2 degrees centigrade right now. So we are prone to snowfall, avalanches, blizzards, etc. And then, of course, landslides and drought. Some speaker was mentioning earlier about the cyclonic map of India. We are also vulnerable to windstorms. Of course, we are not vulnerable to cyclones and tsunamis. These are the only 2 disasters that we are actually not vulnerable to. But you name any disaster, we are vulnerable to that. So windstorms, fires. Fire is becoming one of the major or the most common disaster in Jammu and Kashmir. And we have a few areas like which remain cut off during the winters. A place called Gurez, which is very beautiful but very famous for the construction techniques. The houses that are built over there are made of wood. That's called wood log houses. So these houses are built very, very close to each other in the village because rest of the area is vulnerable to avalanches. Unfortunately, what happens is that if there's a fire in one house in Gurez, the entire village is eradicated, is burnt because of that. Similarly, we have two other areas, Doda and Kishtwar, which also have high this index as far as the fires are concerned. In Jammu and Kashmir, unfortunately, like the rest of the country, we have had many road accidents, and in fact, majority of the deaths have occurred because of the road accidents. Then we are, of course, vulnerable to other disasters like thunderstorms, cloudbursts, lightning, hailstorms, forest fires, GLOF, LLOF, that is landslide, lake outburst, and then heavy snowfall, like as I mentioned. Of course, recently epidemics like COVID, we are vulnerable to heat wave and cold wave also. And recently we have been affected by one of the geological phenomena, which is called the sinkholes. I don't know how many of you are following Jammu and Kashmir in the news, but this is what has happened in one of the major rivers towards the south of Kashmir, in a place called Kukarnag, where a major river was flowing. And if you can see the area where I've marked with the this mouse, a sinkhole has occurred, and the entire water is going into this sinkhole. This is a close-up of the sinkhole. And of course, the majority of the experts have visited, and they are giving their opinion as to how we should deal with it. But then this is how it is. As far as the earthquakes are concerned, there is a similarity between Orissa and J&K, because you are in seismic zone 3 and we are in seismic zone 4 and 5, 5 being the worst or the highest. In the zone 5, earthquakes of magnitude 8 plus can occur. And zone 4 is not any less, because earthquakes of magnitude 7.9 plus can occur. The area where you live in, that is zone 3, which is probably considered to be slightly safer as far as the earthquakes are concerned. Earthquakes of magnitude 6.9 plus can occur in that area. And then, of course, zone 2, where earthquakes of magnitude 4.9 plus can occur. And mind you, all these earthquakes, if they are very shallow and the epicenter is nearby, can cause a lot of destruction. This is the cyclonic map I was talking about of Jammu and Kashmir. You can see the area in the darker red, which is currently now in the Ladakh area. But the rest of the area is also highly vulnerable. We are vulnerable to moderate damage risk. That is, the windstorms up to 44 meters per second can blow in the valley. And we have had many instances where the rooftops of the houses have got blown off. We had an earthquake in 2005, in fact, on 8th October 2005, which was epicentered in Muzaffarabad, just across the border. And of course, almost around 1 lakh deaths occurred across the border. But we were fortunate that we had lesser deaths. But despite being almost around 300 kilometers away from the epicenter, and there were lots of mountains in between, which actually absorbed most of the energy, we still had deaths, and we had lots of damages, where almost about 30,000 houses got fully damaged. And we also got the phenomena of this liquefaction, in which the houses just sank into the ground. Some initiative that we have taken in Jammu and Kashmir, which I will be talking about, is that after the earthquake of 2005, we got one good project supported by the UNDP, which was called the Urban Earthquake Vulnerability Reduction Project. And the main objective of this earthquake resistant program was to cover 38 cities all over India, which either fall in zone 4 or 5, where the population is more than 500,000. So the objectives were that, people should be aware of what earthquakes are. We need to build capacities of not only the people, but also the administrators, the engineers, the architects, the masons, etc., in how to build earthquake-resistant technology constructions. And then, of course, earthquake preparedness and response plans, development of techno-legal regimes, and networking. I think one of the speakers earlier mentioned about, building bylaws not being implemented. As part of this project, we had to ensure that the building bylaws of the main two cities of Srinagar and Jammu are amended, and now it is mandatory in our state to construct earthquake-resistant structures. Of course, the challenge still being how we are going to implement it. And some of the very activities, of course, we undertook a lot of activities in that, but because we have a very short program today, so I'll just make a few mention of a few. Of course, you can ask if you want any further questions. We trained religious preachers, that is imams, the pandits, in the gurdwaras, in the churches, as to how disaster preparedness is to be done, and then how they can disseminate that information to the general public, so that public is more responsive when it comes when the information comes from the religious leaders rather than when it comes from the technocrats or the experts. So we also trained, of course, the police officers, revenue officers, teachers, engineers, school children, civil defense volunteers, home guard volunteers, fire and emergency personnel, the NSS, NCC volunteers, etc. We also did triage for doctors, because we realized that whenever a disaster occurs, the resources are always limited. So how do you decide if you have multiple injuries, multiple people who have got injured? How do you decide who to provide treatment first and who to provide treatment later? And of course, further trainings. The project ended in 2009, and in 2011, we got another program, which was a joint program by UNDP and National Disaster Management Authority. This was called the Urban Risk Reduction Project, in which, of course, again, the two cities of Srinagar and Jammu were selected. And this was mostly based on training the community as to how to respond to disasters. And then we also organized some mock drills and all. This is one of the activities that was undertaken in that. I just give you a little framework about how the disaster management setup works in the country as well as in the states. I'm sure most of you would be already aware. In 2005, the Government of India enacted the National Disaster Management Act. Of course, it's not referred to as the National Act, but it's called the Disaster Management Act of 2005. And the Act was enacted with the intention of providing effective management of disasters, because till then there was no institutional mechanism available for dealing with disasters. The NDMA is headed by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. In Jammu and Kashmir, we enacted the State Disaster Management Authority. Of course, at that time, it was headed by the Honorable Chief Minister at that time, since we are under the governor's rule right now. So it is headed by the Honorable Lieutenant Governor. We have a state executive committee headed by the Chief Secretary. And this is the same all over the country. All states have the same. All states have district disaster management authorities headed by the deputy commissioners or collectors or whatever name you want to call them. But in Jammu and Kashmir, we have two unique divisional disaster management authorities, because we have a shifting capital. For 6 months, the capital is in Srinagar, and for 6 months, the capital shifts to Jammu. Therefore, it's very important to have this divisional disaster management authority, which is headed by the respective divisional commissioners. In 2016, December, earlier we used to be part of the revenue department. In December 2016, a separate department of disaster management, relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction was created. And now all matters related to disaster management are being dealt by them. And this is the most of the activities that are undertaken by them. Then, if I talk about the various programs that we have undertaken in Jammu and Kashmir, one is the strengthening of the SDMA and DDMA, that is the State Disaster Management Authority and the District Disaster Management Authority. Under this project, we were very fortunate that we were able to engage professional disaster management professionals who had done masters or MA in disaster management. Unfortunately, this program ended by Government of India, by NDMA, and it is not in vogue in the entire country right now. Then we had another very good program which was running, of course, throughout the country, that is the SRDR, Sustainable Reduction of Disaster Risk, in which 2 districts were covered. And I'm sure most of you know that when a disaster occurs, the communication is one of the main things that get affected, and we are not able to communicate either between the officers or with the public or with the media, etc. So Government of India started a pilot project called the NDMS, that is the National Disaster Management Service, in which on a pilot basis satellite phones were provided. We have been provided 3 only, one for the State Emergency Operations Center, which is under my direct control, and on a pilot basis to 2 district emergency operation centers, with the intention that this will be expanded further. Then there's a very good scheme which is called the Aapda Mitra scheme. I'm sure it must be applicable in Odisha also. This scheme was started on a pilot basis first in Srinagar, where 200 volunteers were selected and imparted training. And now it has been extended to 13 districts on the extended basis. Then Government of India, through the NDMA, provides funding for conducting the mock exercises at the district level. 1 lakh rupees per district is given to all the districts. In fact, this is the norm throughout the country. And the districts are expected to conduct these mock exercises and test their preparedness level. Now, one of the recent programs that has been started by Government of India is the implementation of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, under which consultants have been engaged. I'm sure one of the consultants from Uttarakhand is also going to make a presentation. So these are the consultants that have been engaged under the Sendai framework. And we also have 1 consultant engaged under the Sendai framework, and 2 more consultants that have been engaged for the vulnerable districts. Then in the districts, there are lots of resources available, but unfortunately, people don't know where they are, and at a time of a disaster, you don't know how to utilize them. So there is a portal made by Government of India that is called the IDRN, that is India Disaster Resource Network, under which the resource inventorization of the manpower, the equipment, and everything is done. These are some of the photographs of the various activities that have been undertaken. Of course, this one is of the SRDR, that is the Sustainable Reduction of Disaster Risk. And as I mentioned to you that Aapda Mitra has already been implemented in 1 district, now being implemented in 13 districts. We'll be training 2,100 volunteers in these 13 districts. We have already identified the training institutes and all. This is a photograph of the pilot project of Srinagar, where the Aapda Mitra training had taken place. Then there's a very good program that was started by Government of India, the NSRM, the National Seismic Risk Mitigation Project, particularly for the states like Jammu and Kashmir, which are vulnerable to the earthquakes, and in which the intention was to identify lifeline buildings. Lifeline buildings are such important buildings where it is expected that in the case of a disaster, the building will not collapse. Like, for example, a hospital. I mean, you can imagine that in a disaster, if the hospital is damaged, then where will we take the injured people? So these lifeline buildings had to be retrofitted. Retrofitting is a process by which you make the existing building safer for an earthquake. But unfortunately, what happened is that the consultants, national level consultants to whom this project was allotted, they were not able to implement these components of the project, and they have now been blacklisted, or their extension has been stopped, and this project is now being closed. We have, as I mentioned earlier also, a state disaster management authority, and under the authority we have a state emergency operations center. It is located very, very close to the airport. And what are the facilities that are available in the Emergency Operations Center? One, we have set up cameras at various locations in the city, so that, and mostly at the vantage points where we are able to monitor the entire city. And there's a proposal to extend these number of cameras so that, we have the cameras installed at various locations, and especially the vulnerable areas. How are these cameras transmitting the information? By RF, that is radio frequency, because in the event of a disaster, the internet may not work, but the radio frequency will continue to work. Of course, the limitation is that it works only on line of sight. The intention of the state EOC is to coordinate with the national, state, and district level. We have two major rivers, in fact, three major rivers passing through Jammu and Kashmir. That is the Jhelum, Tavi, and Chenab. Mostly it is the Jhelum and Tavi which are causing the flooding, and out of that, mostly Jhelum. So we have monitoring gauges at various points of River Jhelum, and these are monitored by the Emergency Operations Center. The adverse weather warnings that we receive from IMD are disseminated by the EOC to all the stakeholders. And as I mentioned earlier, that we get a lot of heavy snowfall also. So the snowfall alerts, the rainfall alerts, avalanche alerts, they are also being issued by the EOC. And we organize various webinars and training programs. I would definitely request the organizers that if your students also want to join the webinars and training programs that we organize, which we do mostly in collaboration with the National Institute of Disaster Management, they are most welcome to join, and we can provide them the certificates of participation also. Then we also issue the daily situation reports and the daily COVID reports. You know that since 2000, almost the entire globe has been affected by this pandemic. Then about a little bit about the EOC, because I know that Odisha has a wonderful setup, particularly the State Disaster Management Authority, or the USDMA, and they also have a wonderful EOC. And though I have not been there, but I've been to Bhubaneswar post the cyclone, and I've seen that the setup and the kind of preparedness that Odisha has is something that we look up to. We have ensured that we have a 1070 activated toll-free number, which can be dialed by prefixing the STD code also, and people can access it. It's manned 24/7. We have communication by the police wireless. We have communication by satellite phone, and we have communication by VoIP, that is the voice operated internet phone. Of course, we have backup power, and then, as I mentioned, about the live streaming. Now, this is a kind of a temporary arrangement that we have right now. So around 80 canals of land has been allocated at another place where we are intending to construct. These are some of the visits of the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor at that time to our Emergency Operations Center. And as I mentioned, that land has been allocated to us where we are intending to make this new building. The work has already been allotted, and it is just adjacent to the airport. So where you can see that non-construction area, that is actually the airport. So we believe that, in the event of a disaster, if we have to receive the relief material, which is airlifted by the cargo planes of the Air Force, they can directly be taken to the this location. Of course, about a little bit about the Sendai framework, which is very important. I think the participants should know that there are 7 global targets, and out of them, 4 are pointed towards reduction. That is, we need to reduce the global disaster mortality. We need to reduce the number of affected people globally. We need to reduce the disaster economic losses and reduce the disaster damages. And at the same time, we need to increase 3 things. That is, number of countries that are associated with the disaster risk reduction strategy. Of course, the target was 2020. And enhance the international cooperation through sustainable support, increase availability of access to multi-hazard early warning system and disaster risk information. There are 4 priority areas for action under the Sendai framework. I think this is something that you may take a note of. One priority area is understanding disaster risk. Second is strengthening disaster risk reduction, investing in disaster risk reduction, enhancing disaster risk reduction for response. And as I mentioned that, we already have a consultant who has been appointed under the Sendai framework for DRR, that is the disaster risk reduction. We also have a scheme called the strengthening of the hazard-prone districts. 115 districts throughout the country have been identified, 2 in Jammu and Kashmir, where we already have these consultants already engaged. This is something very, very important. I think it pertains to everyone that if you go abroad and there's an emergency, you dial 911. But in India, now the emergency toll-free number will be 112. We need to all take a note of this. Of course, the 100, that is police control room, the 101 for the fire and emergency services, 102 for ambulance, 108 for another ambulatory service, 1070 for EOC, 1077 for another. So there are multiple numbers that people do get confused and they may not remember. So if there's a fire incident, you can call 112. If there's a theft, you can call 112. If there is a disaster, you can call 112. And this will now be called the National Emergency Number. And it is under a project called the Emergency Response Support System. Right now, it is functional in Jammu and Kashmir in the police control room, where the PSAP is functional, that is the Public Safety Access Point, a point where you call and the call is connected. But now there is going to be linkage under the National Disaster Management Authority project between the PSAP and the State Emergency Operations Center, so that because the police is not equipped to deal with emergencies like landslides, cyclone, earthquake, etc. So this will be passed on to the Emergency Operations Center, where, again, as I said, it is already functional 24/7. Some staffing is also being provided by NDMA, and the salary of the staff and the running of this project for 3 years will be undertaken under the NDMA project. And the workflow will be such that when you call 112, it will land up in the Emergency Operations Center. From there, because we have the setup in the districts called the District Emergency Operations Center, the information will be forwarded to the District Emergency Operations Center. In the District Emergency Operations Center, there is something that I'll be talking about in the next few slides. The incident will be logged and the incident response system will be activated. Incident response system is a mechanism that National Disaster Management Authority has put in place, that in case of any disaster where the communication from the top to bottom will not be possible, people who are in the field should know what is their role and responsibility and how they should act whenever an incident occurs. It's mostly based on the way army functions, in which if you go towards the border for fighting a war and there is no communication between you and your commanding officer, that does not mean that you will come back. It only means that the CO has already told you what are the steps that you are required to take if there is no communication. So similarly, we train the officers in the incident response system. Of course, in the countries outside India, it is called the ICS, Incident Command System. But in India, it is called the Incident Response System. So this IRS will be activated by the district, and designated officers will be pre-identified and they will be told to take necessary action. And we have a dashboard or something which where we'll be able to see it, that I will be showing in the next slide. We have implemented in the Emergency Operations Center something called the Decision Support System. Now, this is based on artificial intelligence, in which we have already done the basic survey of the vulnerable areas. All the data is input inside the computers. And then once an incident or emergency kind of a situation occurs and an incident is logged, this computer system provides us the solutions. How does it help us, and what are the disasters that it helps us for the hydromet disasters like the floods, flash floods, drought, GLOF, avalanches, lightning, the geological hazards like earthquake, landslides, dam breach, etc., pandemics like COVID, human-induced disasters like the incident, industrial accidents, road accidents, stampedes, or even in conflicts, and then of course forest fires. This is the dashboard that I was talking about. This dashboard is visible not only at the state level but also at the district level, where various incidents are logged, and then the information is available for the administrator, be it the lieutenant governor, be it the chief secretary, the divisional commissioner, the deputy commissioner, or the secretary of the disaster management, or the tehsildar we have at the tehsil level. They can see what are the responses, and then click on each button and try to find out what is the response that is required over there. Now, supposing there is an incident at location A and the rescue teams have to go from location B, it will guide the rescue teams as to how to reach location A, because it will be based on the artificial intelligence that if there's an earthquake, the bridge which was already vulnerable might have given way. So it will suggest alternative methods. This is something that is we have implemented with the support of the World Bank. Other earthquake-resistant measures that we have taken is that with the support of the World Bank, we have done the, as I mentioned that, we have already done the survey. This is the multi-hazard vulnerability assessment of the entire state we have done, under which we have already, and of course the focus is also on the seismic vulnerability besides other disasters, in which we have digitized all the disaster risks under the DRDB, that is called the Digital Risk Database. And based on the hydrology of the rivers, etc., we have also done the integrated operational forecasting system. So this helps us in forecasting if there is a possibility of floods, etc. And then decision support system, which I talked about. Building codes, I already mentioned that we have now made it mandatory for all the constructions to be earthquake resistant. And we have started a project for seismic microzonation of Srinagar in collaboration with the University of Kashmir. And another project we have started with the in collaboration with Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Katra. And the collaborators are IIScR Kolkata and University of Cambridge, United Kingdom, where we are going to do the earthquake resilience project, because that area where the Mata Vaishno Devi University is also falls under an active seismic fault. We are one of the few states in the country that have 2 dedicated battalions of the State Disaster Response Force. And of course, they are located at 2 headquarters, one at Srinagar and Jammu. But we have deployed teams from the State Disaster Response Force in all the districts so that the response time is minimized and the teams can reach immediately whenever there is a disaster. 1 battalion of NDRF has been sanctioned, the 13th battalion, which is not currently in Jammu and Kashmir, it is still in Punjab. But a team from the NDRF has been deployed in Jammu and Kashmir. And once the land and all is allotted to the NDRF, they'll be shifting here. We have done the safety audit of lifeline buildings. We have initiated that process. Capacity building of schools, colleges, and particularly for the earthquake safety has been undertaken. We have trained many engineers and architects and masons in earthquake resistant technology, and we have also trained, besides the Abda Mitra scheme, 300 volunteers per district, where we impart the first aid, search and rescue, and firefighting training to them. And we had many incidences. I don't know how many of you are aware that we have the world famous Dal Lake in Srinagar, where people go for a joyride in the shikaras. But unfortunately, when a high wind velocity windstorm would take place, the shikaras would topple over, and we had a few deaths also. So we arranged these floating devices for all the shikaras and the houseboats, and now it is mandatory for all these shikaras to carry these floating devices. Because we are vulnerable to floods, as I mentioned, in 2014 we had floods. So we have now taken an initiative, because at that time what we realized was that resources were available, but unfortunately the resources were available with such departments that were actually not involved with the management of floods. So now a decision has been taken by the government that all the resources, including the manpower and the equipment, will be pooled together whenever there is an impending disaster. And these will be reallocated to the department that will require the services of the manpower as well as the equipment. That has helped us in effectively dealing with the small floods that we got after 2014. We have already done the mapping and zonation of the vulnerable areas as far as the floods are concerned. We have conducted the river morphology study for two major rivers, that is River Jhelum and River Tavi, under the World Bank sponsored project. We have pre-positioned our rescue teams with boats and whatever equipment is required to deal with these floods. Of course, I have been to the cyclone shelters of Orissa, and I was really amazed the way that they have been constructed and how they have been made self-sufficient. So that is something that we are trying to replicate in our rescue shelters. We have not, of course, been able to do it because the rescue shelters that we have identified are mostly school buildings or such safer buildings where only at the time of a flood they are utilized. We had very serious problems that we had not done the dredging of the River Jhelum, due to which the siltation had taken, and that was causing flooding. So the dredging has been done. Encroachments have been removed from the flood spill channel and the tributaries. And now, as far as the early warning system is concerned, we have 17 automatic weather stations installed at various locations. And then we have this Shri Amarnathji Yatra, for which 5 temporary automatic weather stations are also installed. We have automatic rain gauges at 13 locations, which are linked with the IMD system. Besides this, we have almost about 100 plus automatic rain gauges, which are of the universities, of various universities. And we are trying to build up the linkages between them. We are fortunate that we have 2 Doppler radars installed in Jammu and Kashmir, one at Srinagar, one in Jammu. We have a landslide mitigation project and avalanche mitigation project. Anita ji, could you please tell me how much time I have so that I move with that pace?
Sir, you can continue, no problem.
Okay.
Up to 10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you so much. So I hope I'm not going too fast.
No, sir, it's all right.
Okay, thank you. If you want, I can slow down. Okay, so as far as the landslide mitigation is concerned, because I said that we are a hilly area, and in our hilly area, the areas are prone to stripping of the land, and then we also have constructed a national highway, rather widened national highway between Srinagar and Jammu. And unfortunately, because of the widening of that road, we are constantly facing the problems of landslide. So this is a project that Government of India has started. And then, of course, another project for the avalanche mitigation, in which we will be able to take preventive measures to, particularly in the areas like Gulmarg, which is a tourist destination where people go in winter for doing the skiing. Those areas are also vulnerable to avalanches. And then we have incidents where in Gurez or in Valtingunad. In Valtingunad, that is towards the south of Kashmir, we had an incident of avalanche and blizzard where 300 people had died sometime in 2005. So we are now taking measures to prevent the damages due to the avalanches. Also on the hilly roads that connect the areas which are mostly cut off due to snowfall. Some of the photographs of various activities that we have been undertaking, of course, I could not share all the photographs. Then there is one more project which is being sponsored by Government of India, that is the Flood Risk Mitigation Scheme. Of course, it has not yet started, but the wonderful thing about this project will be that we'll be able to do the DEM, that is the digital elevation map of all the low-lying areas. That will help us in preparation of the inundation models, that how the areas are going to behave if there is going to be excess rainfall, and which are the areas that might get inundated. I'm sure this is something that concerns us all, mobile radiation detection system. Mobile towers are coming up everywhere because we need mobile phones for communication. But unfortunately, what is happening is that these mobile towers are radiating giving out a lot of radiations which are not healthy for the human beings. And for this, we have initiated a project in which we'll be able to check the level of the radiation, and then of course train people in doing that, and then start disseminating this so that people can check the extent of radiation through these towers. Then earlier there was a scheme called the SDRF, in which the funding was available under the State Disaster Response Fund. They have created a window under that for preparedness and capacity building. And that is a fund that is available in your state also. And you can utilize that money for imparting the capacity building and preparedness trainings. Then under the COVID, of course, which was also declared as a disaster and has been now covered under the SDRF norms, we are providing support for the management of COVID. I'm sure many of you are aware that when COVID started and the first national level lockdown was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister, there were hundreds and thousands of migrant laborers who got stranded in Jammu and Kashmir and were not able to reach their destinations. So we provided support to those migrant laborers. And I'm very happy to announce that not a single death of a migrant labor occurred because of hunger or because of shelter. They might have died, or randomly a few might have died because they contracted COVID. That is a different thing. But because of hunger or because of shelter, not a single migrant laborer died in Jammu and Kashmir. And that is something that we take pride in. This is some of the activities that we are undertaking for the creating the mass awareness. We are also collaborating with the Indian Air Force in doing the rescue operations. The National Disaster Management Act, or the Disaster Management Act of 2005, mandates that there needs to be a national disaster mitigation fund, and at the state level, a state disaster mitigation fund. Now, in 2020, the draft guidelines were also framed for this. In Jammu and Kashmir, what we did is that we kept a token amount of 25 crores for the State Disaster Mitigation Fund, which was utilized. Of course, that was a one-time event, and now we have kept a budgetary allocation of 10 crore rupees for the Disaster Mitigation Fund, because disaster SDRF, that is the Disaster Response Fund, can only be utilized after a disaster. But fortunately, this Disaster Mitigation Fund can be used to prevent a disaster taking place. Then, almost I'm reaching towards the end of my presentation. The Government of India has enacted the National School Safety Guidelines. These guidelines were actually meant for implementation only in the schools. But when we adopted them in Jammu and Kashmir, we adopted them for all educational institutions throughout Jammu and Kashmir. So under this, what we do is that we impart disaster preparedness trainings. We have made it compulsory in all educational institutions. They approach the civil defense or the SDRF or the Red Cross or the health department. These are the 4 agencies that we have identified who impart the disaster preparedness training. Then in all these educational institutions, it is mandatory for them to prepare their school disaster management plan, college disaster management plan, university disaster management plan, and evacuation plan. And then, of course, once those plans are prepared, then we do the trainings for that and start conducting the mock drills. Just a few components of the school safety guidelines is that the teachers are trained as trainers to impart this training. And in each district, 15 such TOTs are identified. They are imparted the training. Then 500 teachers and officials per district are trained by these TOTs. And on a pilot basis, we have initially given a target of 200 schools. By school, I mean an educational institution. As I said, we have made it applicable to all the, not only schools, but other higher education also. So 200 educational institutions per district have to prepare their district disaster management plans, and majority of them are already prepared it. Disaster preparedness kits are to be arranged and made available in these 200 educational institutions per district, so that in the event of a disaster, they can use these safety equipments, the first aid kits, ropes, maybe spades, etc. And then mock drills have to be conducted. Sensitization has to be done at the state level. The grant in aid is also being provided. We have this SIE, that is the State Institute of Education or the State Education Department, and that is being done with them. Then we are doing the RVS, that is the rapid visual screening of 200 educational institutions per district. By rapid visual screening, I mean that, without actually going into the completely the structures, the structural aspect of whether the building is safe or unsafe, by doing a rapid visual screening, you are able to assess to a great extent that a building may or may not be safe, and then suggest the remedial measures. The remedial measures can be 2. 1, it can be structural, where some construction and all would be required, maybe some building the lintels or the earthquake bands, etc., or reinforcing the corners. And then we concentrate more on the non-structural measures, because the non-structural mitigation measures are very, very helpful to people. Like, for example, if you have a school building and or let's say an educational institution, we see that majority of the doors open inwards towards the class. Now, if there is a disaster and you're sitting in a class and let us say there's a loud explosion or an earthquake or something, everybody has a tendency to run out. Now, when they're running out and the door is closed, they are all pushing towards the door. So actually the door should have been opening outward instead of inward. So it doesn't take too much of money, because the door and the hinge is the same. You only need to change the direction of the door. So these are called non-structural measures. Or you're sitting in your office and next to your table, there's a almirah or a locker or something, a steel locker, which is facing towards you, because it's very easy to, manipulate, open the locker while you're sitting on the table. And in case there's an earthquake, the locker will fall on you or on your head and can kill you. So you need to change the direction of the locker and maybe, screw it up with the wall with a safety hatch, so that even if there is shaking, it will not fall. These computers, or in the labs, you have these chemicals and all. Most of them are, placed in such a manner that even if there is a slight shaking, it could be because of the cyclone. You have a heavy windstorm and things will start moving. So you need to, put things, anchor things in place so that they do not move, and your safety factor increases. Then we also teach people that, when they are with their families, they should prepare their family disaster management plans. Like, for example, somebody is living in Orissa, and due to the cyclone or any other disaster, they get a child gets separated from his parents. The child will try to contact the parent, and maybe the phone number of the parent and child both are not working. So at some point of time, maybe the child might go to one relief center and the parent might go to another relief center, and assuming that at the relief center they have satellite phones or wireless communication where communication facility is available, the child will try to contact the parent and will not be able to contact because the parent's numbers are not working. So it's always very good to have a relative or some contact outside Orissa, maybe in Delhi, maybe in some other city. So the child will also call the same person, the parent will also call the same person, and that person will act as a bridge between the two and tell them that your child is safe or your parents are at such and such rescue shelter. So these are very, 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 very small measures that we try to teach people. And then, of course, how to do the drop cover hold. I'm sure most of you would be aware that in case there's an earthquake or in case there's a shaking, you don't need to run out of the building. You need to drop down. If there's a table or some sturdy material in front of you, drop down, take cover under it, hold its legs. That's called drop, cover, and hold. So that if there is any heavy material that might fall on your head, it will be saved. You'll be saved by that table, etc. So structural and non-structural measures are something that we advise, and these are just a few pictures before I end, that some of the activities of the mock drills that we undertake. And we try to ensure that very small children are also involved in this training, because we felt that children are the best learners, and when they learn, they go back and they teach their parents, they teach their friends as to how these measures are to be taken. As I mentioned that, fire is one of the most common disaster that we are facing. And even if you have a fire extinguisher in a college or a school, you do not know how to use it. So we teach the children by doing a mock drill as to how they can utilize the, how they can use a fire extinguisher. We teach teachers, students, and the general public and the community CPR, that is the part of the first aid, that is the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So how basic first aid is imparted. So first aid training, search and rescue training, this is drop, cover, hold. This one, in which you take a sturdy table or something, go under it and hide under it so that you can save any injuries on your head. Then, of course, wherever we go, we do also try to show them how search and rescue is done, how you evacuate from a high-rise building with the help of ropes. How do you make knots with the ropes? Because rope is the easiest rescue material that is available. But if you do not know how to tie a knot in the rope, then you cannot do anything. This is drop, cover, hold I already talked about. We have prepared these pamphlets on school disaster management plans so that it makes it easy for the children in the school to understand how these plans are to be prepared. And then, these children in a school, they depicted what they had learned from us by doing a skit and showing that one house is earthquake resistant, the other house is not earthquake resistant, and how it helped the families who had constructed that. Then, of course, we keep organizing programs with persons with disabilities also, because we believe that persons with disability, women, old age children, they are all persons who are more vulnerable in the event of a disaster. So just a few photos before I end. And of course, we have also to prepare for the floods also, because as I mentioned that we are vulnerable not only to earthquakes, but also to floods and other incidents. So our motto is that don't be afraid, be prepared. Let's make our community safer before the next disaster strikes. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll be very, very happy to participate. Over to you, madam. Over to you, Anita ji.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much for
Yes,
your
Samalji.
nice presentation. Actually, our inauguration took some more time. That's why we became late. That means our session is to end by 9:30, but we have that 15-20 minutes we have taken extra. That is manageable and acceptable in our condition. Because we took around half an hour more for our inaugural session. Anyway, so thank you very much, sir, for your nice presentation and cooperation that within a very short notice you agreed to give this presentation and also beautifully presented on this platform. So thank you all. We shall now close this session. So over to Principal sir for closing remarks.
Yeah, Samalji, I would also just like to make a small remark that, all of you, all the participants, all the, of course, the faculty are welcome to come to Jammu and Kashmir. And if there is any support that is required from us, we'll be very, very happy to help you out. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Principal sir to give the closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh sir. Finally, we are come to the conclusion of this inaugural session. On behalf of the institute, I once again thank IST, AICTE, and all the dignitaries of the session and the participants for their wholehearted participation. I hope the coming 6 days will be a beautiful journey. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Okay, so now we are going to close this sessions. Thank you.